With conference realignment happening now across the country, everything in sports is going to change over the next couple of years. How good is Baylor's brand, and can it get them a bid to the SEC? This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Drake Toll here alongside Inside the Bears, Cameron Stuart on Locked On Baylor. Thanking you for listening to Locked On Baylor today and making it your first listen every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Cam, there is so much realignment, so much so that USC will play a game against Rutgers at 11 a.m. on November 16th in the pouring snow.
That's 11 a.m. here, by the way.
Yeah, noon.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. on the West Coast, noon for Rutgers. And now it feels like the entire landscape is going to flip on its head. We could see two super conferences. We could still see a Power Five. But right now, where does Baylor fit into this?
Firmly in the Big 12.
And where does the Big 12 sit into this?
And that's not a bad thing, Drake. Well, I was of the sound mind that the new Big 12 was better than the current Big 12, current Pac-12 last week. Okay. Even with UC and UCLA in it, from a competition standpoint, right? That's all we care about as fans. Like, we don't give two dumps about what market you have. The conference does, and the coaches do. I get it. But now it is without question. It is without question it's better than the Pac-12. So I think that question of where does the Big 12 stand and where does Baylor stand goes hand in hand with where does the Pac-12 stand? Because I don't think the Pac-12 has the power to go and do what the Big 12 did and get some nice names in there, decent-sized programs that are also competitive and that make something of geographic sense. Like, I get it. UCF isn't close to anything here, but you know what I mean? Like, Cincinnati is close enough, and they're only going an hour behind for some of these teams, and BYU's got fans everywhere. What does the Pac-12 do? San Diego State? Hawaii? Like, where do they go? It's not the same. There are levels to this, Drake, and they are not the same. And that being said, this is not a hot take, but it's obviously it's going to serve Colorado and Utah at least much better to, like, try their asses off to get in the Big 12. Utah already is going to have BYU there. It's not that far away. Colorado's already been in the Big 12, probably should have stayed in the Big 12. And all of a sudden, the Big 12 from last year, everyone putting their name on a gravestone after UC and OU leave, have pretty good bargaining power here. And you know, if Utah and Colorado go and Arizona State go, because that's going to make sense for them too.
Right.
Then all these other West Coast teams in the Pac-12 are like, well, they're already in. We might as well try. And I don't know if Baylor and TCU hold this kind of power like Stanford and Cal did.
Yeah.
Last year, but I think it would be so funny if they told them to go screw. Like, nah, we'll take Arizona State. Yep. Oregon State, you want to come in here too? You bring us nothing, but yeah, we'll take you. Yeah, just totally spurn Cal and Stanford for the whole religious schools thing they pulled last year, I think would be hilarious. But that is a long way of saying the Big 12 and Baylor are in a good spot where they are right now.
Is the way that I look at this.
Kind of done with that.
Yeah, I just don't. Does the Big 12, somebody's got to implode. It feels like it's inevitable that someone across the scape of college athletics has to implode, whether it's the Pac-12 or the ACC or the Big 12. It's not going to be the Big 10. It's not going to be the SEC. If any two conferences are going to become power conferences, it'll be those two. So if you're the Big 12 and geography doesn't matter, now do you just start targeting anybody? And in the same vein, if the Pac-12 goes to the ACC and says, look, give us Clemson, I don't know if Clemson says yes, but they're going to have to go past geographical lines to be able to keep their conference intact, and nothing is now stopping them from doing that.
Yeah, I think to your first point there, the Big 12 should knock on the doors of all the Pac-12 schools. You might as well. I mean, I don't know. Nobody's going to want Washington State and Oregon State. They're total orphans in this whole thing. Clearly, it doesn't matter. It used to be the popular opinion that, well, if Oklahoma ever leaves the Big 12, they're going to have to take Oklahoma State with them. The state's not going to allow that, blah, blah, blah. Clearly, that's not the case anymore, as we saw with that exact example. So, yeah, I think it behooves you as the Big 12 to just go for anybody. I mean, if we're going to make super conferences here and it's not going to matter where the geographical lines are, like you say, go for all of them and pod this thing up. We're not going to have Houston playing Washington every year. Pod this up. You get one cool West Coast trip a year, blah, blah, blah. You're basically working in a diet Pac-12 within the Big 12. And that is never going to hurt you. I know, again, we talk about the revenue that teams bring in, but in terms of the Big 12, they're not going to have those giant revenue monsters. They're just going to have good competitive sports programs with good fan bases. So if that's the case, those Pac-12 teams remaining have that. And I'm thinking Arizona, Arizona State, Washington, Stanford, and Cal. I don't want them.
Right.
But those teams have that. Even Colorado, not the competitiveness part, but the fan base part they've got. Utah has both those things big time, bigger than most people know. So yeah, I say go for all of them. I don't know if the Big 12 goes outside of that. Brings in other teams that aren't from the dissolving Pac-12. Because you say something's going to blow up and all this, it's got to be the Pac-12, right? Like, they are nothing without Los Angeles. And it's weird for us to say that a year after we were saying, where does the Big 12 go from here? Because they're going to implode. But the Big 12 did not have this giant market anyway. Like, the Pac-12 survives on the LA market in terms of TV deals and revenue and relevance, because those were still the two best programs in terms of football for brands and making money, and now they don't have any of that. And so the Big 12 is just like, you know what? We might not have the biggest brands, but we're going to have some real damn good college football. And people like that, right? So I say try all of those teams. I imagine it will probably be capped out at the four that are being mentioned right now. Colorado, Utah, and the two Arizona schools.
To me, it feels like the SEC is going to go on this spending spree of trying to bring colleges in. Baylor's not the first on that list. It could be Florida State. It could be Clemson. It's likely going to be a lot of the ACC schools. It could be Miami if you'd like, even some of the Texas schools. I think Baylor's probably pretty far down that list of teams in the South that the SEC would go after. But at the same time, it's not impossible that happens when you look at the splurging spree that the conference is trying to go on. So the next thing that I want to get into is the odds that Baylor finds themselves in the SEC, because if there's one conference you want to be a part of right now, it is the SEC for long-term sustainability. But before we get into that, I'm going to tell you guys about Locked On's newest sponsor, LinkedIn. As the sun comes out and small businesses are back in business, LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier to grow your team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people you want to interview faster and for free. So basically, you go to LinkedIn, you can apply for jobs, like find ways to get a job if you need a job. Or if you're like, dang, I've always wanted an intern, a paid intern. Go on LinkedIn and put, hey, paid assistant, paid intern, paid whatever, this, boop, boop, post it. People will apply. I'll apply. You send it to me, I'll apply. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn. There's 810 million people on its professional network. Add your job to the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile. Spread the word that you're hiring. It's really simple. There are screening questions and make it easy for you to focus on candidates who have the right skills for you. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn number one in job opportunities and delivery. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know Every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. LinkedIn.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Cam Stuart, happy Saturday, 11 a.m. It's September 16th, the first conference game of the season, and out march the Baylor Bears against the Auburn Tigers at Jordan-Hare.
The Stidham Bowl, yes.
Yeah, that's
Love
what we're
that.
going for here.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that far-fetched because the SEC will not stop at 16 teams.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm with you on this one, but I also see your argument in that they don't care if this goes to like 30 teams.
Mm-hmm.
15 years from now, they could have Rice in there. Who knows?
But
Probably
not Baylor?
Probably not. No, I'm saying in that argument that you're presenting, Baylor would obviously fall into that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still of the mind that, like, I hate saying this because I love Baylor, but in terms of what the conferences are looking for, they don't bring much of anything. And that's to say a big market, a big alumni base, and a big brand. And they don't really have either of those things. Obviously, they're doing all right for themselves. But I just don't see it. And I don't know if I'd want it from that competitive standpoint. Baylor's a good program, right? And I think they're going to continue to be a good program. And I hope they don't find the struggles that UT have been finding the last decade or so. But it's just a battle that I don't think Baylor wants, right? So even if we're going off the Drake Toll model of them going to the SEC, obviously you'd have pods at that point. So you'd still probably be playing what? UT, TCU would be in there if Baylor's in there.
Right.
Whatever. Houston, A&M, Arkansas, some combination of that. That's an uphill battle, recruiting-wise, big time. I think it's real good for. I don't think it's any mistake that Baylor's recruiting class is really good. A, because they have Dave Aranda and a great coaching staff, but also B, with Texas leaving the conference and A&M not in the conference, and they both have really good recruiting classes. So I think that's an uphill battle when you're saying right now, like, look, we're going to have a good conference here in the new Big 12, but we're also going to be right at the top of that pecking order.
Yeah.
Like, we've got something sustainable here against a Cincinnati or Oklahoma State, UCF, BYU, whatever. That message becomes a lot tougher to sell when you're saying, we're going to be at the top of the pecking order here. UT, A&M, Arkansas, way they're playing right now. I don't see it, mainly because I don't think they bring the brand. But I understand your argument of I don't think at some point they're just not going to care, really. They're just going to be picking off teams for fun. And if that is the case, I will concede. If that is the case, and we start seeing 20, 24 teams in this mega conference, then maybe it is worth it for Baylor, especially from a basketball standpoint. But we all know football's the moneymaker. Maybe it is from the school standpoint. I don't see it from either side right now. Sorry, I pooped on your party.
If Vanderbilt was in the ACC,
which they should be.
Right. Their brand is so far tanked from a sports standpoint. Very similar to like sometimes you forget Wake Forest exists. It's like the school that you're like, yeah, Wake Forest. That's a freaking thing. Vanderbilt would be that if they are in the SEC. The reason that they are not that is because they're in the SEC. I don't think Baylor will ever be forgotten like a Vanderbilt or a Wake Forest, but in the SEC, you automatically get that the aura behind, that's an SEC school in whatever sport you play, even if you're the Vanderbilt laughingstock. So
I think that's before we move on, I think that's actually a good point, Drake. I think you made a good point there.
Thanks,
because Wake Forest is like a top 15 football team this year. And they're probably going to be again. Yes.
No.
But you see that uniform of like black with the gold helmet, and you think Vanderbilt still. which is crazy, and maybe even Purdue over Wake Forest. Wake Forest has never been good. And Purdue also, well, they had a good year this year, but historically they stink, and Vanderbilt's way worse. That's a decent point, Drake. I don't know if anyone's still getting us confused with Oregon, but if they were, that would be an even better point.
See, these schools are forgettable because they're not in the SEC. And
Yeah,
there will come a time to
true.
me that if you don't join in on that fraternity, you could be left behind by college athletics. And in that, it's already kind of happened to team or leagues like the Pac-12. That's what's happening to the Pac-12 right now. The Big Ten, the SEC, and to a lesser extent, Big 12, ACC are leaving them behind. And Baylor, if they jump on the train of the SEC, I don't think they will be the world beaters 12-0 every season. There's just no way. That level of competition is so much different than the Big 12 in football. They'd be, to me, a lot like Arkansas. You have your 6-6 years, you have your 8-4 years, a 10-2 year every 8 years is solid, and you go about your day and be a middle of the pack, pretty solid squad. Whereas in the Big 12, you have the avenue to the college football playoff much more accessibly than the SEC. However, when you get there, you're getting curb stomped by, as we've seen from every Big 12 team that's made the playoffs, by another SEC or Big 10 team.
Yeah.
So from the Big 12, you can make the college football playoff and get stomped. From the SEC, you probably don't make the playoff, but when you do, you win a national championship. The give and take in that is what I've been warring with myself quite a bit. And I believe it's a point. Is Baylor in that first 8 the SEC goes after? I still don't think so. I still don't think their brand.
Eight's a big number.
8's a big number, but
maybe they're on the outskirts of that. But yeah, like you said earlier, I mean, the first ones are going to be Clemson, Florida State, Miami, probably.
There are Big 12 teams,
North Carolina,
that are above Baylor. There are. You can look at, I'd say Oklahoma State is probably in that conversation before Baylor. Maybe Texas Tech, not from even a competitive standpoint. Look, I get it. Baylor's better at sports than most of these schools the SEC would take in the top 8, but it's not about being good at sports. It's truly not about that. You know what it's about?
No, it doesn't matter.
It's about brand.
Yeah.
And it's about who's got the biggest brand and the most money. And what is Baylor's brand? Hold that thought, Cam, because I got to tell people about BetOnline. BetOnline is where the game starts. Your number one source for all your sports betting needs. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, news. NHL playoffs are over, but Major League Baseball is still going on. NBA's done. Major League Baseball is right there for live betting. There's also fighting and stuff where they put them in the ring and they fight, MMA, UCF. BetOnline is your continued source for sports wagering information, including live betting. You've got golf, too, and all kinds of jazz. Go check it out. Lines, too, for the college football season. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device. Really accessible. Easy to learn about more trends in action at BetOnline. BetOnline is where the game starts. Cam, I was doing some digging today, and I found our old buddy, Big Game Boomer. And, of course, a lot of his lists are outlandish, but I'm going to resort to this one because it's one of the few where people have compiled the best brands in college athletics. He put your Baylor Bears at number 41 overall. That's ahead of schools like Duke, their basketball prowess, Louisville, ASU, Utah, Minnesota, Houston. It's 13 spots ahead of TCU, according to him, well ahead of Cincinnati and Iowa State, Kansas State, Stanford, Rutgers, Pitt. And
we're behind.
Baylor's behind schools.
That's what I want to know. Give me a crazy one that we're behind.
Kansas is number 32. Baylor's at 41. Kansas basketball, obviously, though, a lot of prowess. Texas Tech's at 33.
But just as good as Duke basketball.
Yes. And they're at 43. Oh, true. Great GP. Great point. UCF's at 35. Baylor's at 41. NC State 40. Baylor 41. You also have schools like Oklahoma State who are in the top 30. Arkansas is in the top 20, as well as BYU who's in the top 20. And then your top 15 is pretty cut and dry with your A&Ms, your Floridas, your LSUs in Oklahoma, and Texas and Michigan, and Oklahoma State, or Ohio State, Notre Dame. For you, and even hearing those teams, I think I start to realize, there are a lot of brands that are a lot bigger. The T-shirt schools, there are so many of them that come before Baylor, and that does hurt the university when it comes to realignment.
Yeah, I mean, we actually talked about this off camera before the show, but Baylor doesn't have any Subway alumni or Walmart alumni, if you will.
Oracle. Oracle.
Yeah, sure. Anyway, if you're a Baylor fan, you went there, or you know someone that went there, your whole family went there, and you get your gear from the bookstore, not from Walmart, like you would if you're not. This is a slight or anything. If you're in Alabama or an A&M or something like that, you're just a fan. Not the case at Baylor, and I think that hurts their brand. And you asked originally, what is Baylor's brand? It's wholesome, Drake. It is, because our brand right now is, like, you hear every recruit talking about it, but they're like, yeah, it's just a family atmosphere. I really feel valued here. Love the coaching staff, person over player, and we're getting pretty good at winning things. Like, that's the brand right now. 5 years ago, we were still those things, but we weren't winning anything. So I'll take that. I love where Baylor's at right now, and partially it's because if this new Big 12, I think, is going to be a success competitively, and Baylor is going to be at the top of that. They're going to be one of the power programs in it. So, like, when you listed that they were 41st, that didn't surprise me.
No.
But hearing them after Kansas, but ahead of Duke, surprises me a lot. Duke's a hell of a brand for basketball. Again, we know it's about football.
Size of school is a big thing.
But they have Subway alumni. Duke does.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And yeah, Kansas definitely does in terms of, like, people who live in Kansas.
State school too. That's big.
Right. That is big. But they're so bad at football, Drake.
Yeah.
Like, so bad.
Duke is.
I would understand if you had. I know Duke's pretty bad too. But that said, I would understand how you could have Kansas and Duke ahead of Baylor, or both behind Baylor. I'd say probably both ahead of Baylor, because basketball's such a big brand for Duke. I love Big Game Boomer. This is a random aside. He's just like, dude, I'm gonna make lists, and it's
Marketing
basically
genius.
It's gonna be basically what I think, and I don't really care, and I appreciate the hell out of that.
Absolutely.
So Baylor's brand is wholesome, Drake. Good Christian school. We spell SEC, not SEX, okay? All right? Be careful of that, folks, by the way, if you're typing out some good tweets. X is next to the C in the keyboard. So, trigger warning.
It is.
Some of us have been victimized.
Yeah,
Anyway.
Hard to make that mistake. Right.
So it's a wholesome brand, and they are a good athletic department, but you just don't have the fan base to go with it. And hopefully that changes. I don't know how drastically that'll change, but, I mean, you start to see Baylor, they don't have the Dallas market or the Houston market, but they've got plenty of alums in both. And they're, in 2 years from now, you'll look at the basketball and the football programs. They'll both be nationally relevant. They will both have awesome facilities, by the way, which does play a part. They're clearly a school that invests a lot in their athletic department, which is something conferences really like.
Chip and Joanna.
Yep. R1.
R1. Everyone's R1.
Which that does help. That does help.
Everyone's
look
R1.
At Cal, dude. Cal's not that big a state school, and they're not good at sports, but they're a heck of a school, and they've got a decent alumni base. Stanford's the same way. They're no longer good at sports.
Texas Tech was R1 before Baylor, well before Baylor.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me too much. It's not as good a school as Baylor overall, but yeah, it's a big school with a lot of state funding. Yeah, that doesn't shock me. Most state schools should be R1.
Right. All of this put together, though, if Baylor's wholesome brand is what they're going to hang their hat on, right? This wholesome nature, but, don't make a lot of money, do a lot with a little. I feel like the wholesome brand puts you in the Mountain West Conference before it does a power conference if this realignment thing really gets crazy.
Yeah, which was my point in the last segment. I just don't think. It's sad to say as a sports fan, but, like, I don't think the competitiveness puts you over the line. I don't. And, like, you were mentioning what Baylor could be in the SEC. That's what Baylor used to be in the SWC.
Yeah.
You get a good coach and you're decent, and every couple years the other teams suck and you're really good, and you go to the Cotton Bowl. And I'm okay with that. I mean, that's what Baylor was like, when I was in college so long ago, and it looked like that's what we were going to be forever
Baylor
again.
The Cotton Bowl?
They did before I went to college, but
who they play?
Anyway, we're moving on. Drake McClain's other alma mater, weirdly enough. Where was I going with that? Probably something really enlightening. But all that to say, the brand unfortunately is not big enough to get him over the line. That's why I was saying, if we're going into Drake's bag of tricks in the future, the SEC is just going to get as many schools as they can. And in that case, Baylor probably would be invited geographically. It's easy to pod them. Traditional rivalries. And competitiveness will bring in some money. If Baylor starts going to major bowl games under Dave Aranda year in, year out, they're going to start making some money. They're just never going to have the 100,000-seater stadium.
No, they're not going to have that. That's okay. The new basketball, not downgrade, but less seats. A quarter, 3/4 of the seats that were at the Farrell, which is going to behoove, but at the same time, from a brand standpoint,
it's going to be great for an atmosphere.
Yeah.
Brand
standpoint.
But there are some people on the message boards that are not happy about it.
Yeah, yours.
That's an aside, but that was a very hot button topic when that came out.
Well, that's part of the brand. I know we got to get out of here, but that's part of the brand thing. People showing up to games, and that is not consistently done at Baylor athletic events.
Mm-hmm.
And a big part of that, I don't want to dog on Baylor fans, obviously. A big part of that's being in the Dallas, Houston metros. Typical alumni bases there. Baylor alumni are spread out in a lot of different places, and you don't have the basis in Waco to come out in droves conveniently. I think that's a big part. But in the same way, that excuse doesn't fly to to these conferences that are like, oh, we want to take you as a school. You're like, well, we don't have a very, very much attendance. They're like, oh, I don't care what your excuse is. We don't want that.
Yeah, proof's in the pudding.
So, well, Cam, people out there want to know who you are. Where can they find you personally?
Well, Drake, I don't know if I told you this, but I revamped my Twitter.
Really?
So it's at Real Cam Stuart, which I think is probably below my name on the YouTube right now.
That's you?
Yep, that's me. I go full. It's just only Baylor stuff. Baylor Homer. Writing
Homer
for Inside the Bears, which is a subsect of Sports Illustrated. You might have heard of it. So you can find me there. I'm doing a lot of recruiting stories right now, as you could probably guess. You talked a lot about that on the podcast. Great recruiting year for Baylor, but that's where you can find me. Nonsensical tweets. Sometimes they're funny.
Are they ever
One of
sensical?
these days, if Drake C. Toll gives me a shout out, I'll probably get like 1 million followers. Or retweets one of my things, I'll probably go viral. We'll see.
Remember that one time you had like 12 likes?
Barely.
It was a good tweet.
Barely remember it.
It was a good tweet.
Once football season comes around, I still need to get more indoctrinated into Baylor Twitter. Right now, it's just anyone that has a kind of funny Baylor tweet. I click on them. I see if Drake is following them, and then I follow them too, and they follow me back. That's how I'm getting followers right now.
That's the formula.
Not through good content and being noticed. It's through that.
Wow.
So,
if
Baylor
anyone out
Twitter,
there
help me out, please.
Yeah. If you're wondering the formula, that's the formula. If you're wondering where to find Locked On Baylor, it's wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. Thanks again for listening, as always. Of course, the rest of this week, we're still talking football, recruiting, and a lot of that because Baylor's doing a very nice. And
very nice.
There is other stuff going on as well that I'm sure we'll be talking about, including conference realignment and LinkedIn. Thanks for listening today. I'm Drake Toll alongside Inside the Bears, Cameron Stuart on Happy Monday. Enjoy your Monday. It's a 4th of July. Happy freaking 4th of July. Locked.
God bless
on.
America.
Did I already say locked on?
Might as well go
Baylor.
for it again, Drake.